English à la Keifak.
Welcome back to English à la Keifak, everyone. We are so glad you are joining us again today.
Hello, everyone. Yes, welcome back. If you are here to improve your English listening through natural, real conversations, you are in the right place.
Exactly. Today, we are talking about something we all experience every single week, waiting.
Oh, waiting. Just hearing that word makes me want to look at my watch.
Right? And if you enjoy our show, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, or drop a comment. It really helps more English learners find us. So, Maya, let me tell you what happened to me yesterday.
What happened? Set the scene for us.
Well, yesterday afternoon, I was sitting in a coffee shop downtown. I was supposed to meet a friend there at 2 o'clock. At 2:15, he wasn't there. At 2:30, he was still not there. And honestly, I noticed something about myself while I was sitting there.
What did you notice? Were you getting angry?
A little bit, yes. But it wasn't just that I was losing time. It was the feeling of sitting there, micropause for 0.3 seconds, looking at the door every 30 seconds, not knowing when he would actually walk through it. 10 minutes felt like an hour.
I know that exact feeling. But wait, did he eventually arrive?
He did. He arrived at 2:35, 35 minutes late. He told me that traffic was terrible, which was true, but those 35 minutes felt endless to me.
That is so true. It is funny because 35 minutes is not really a long time in general. If you're watching a good video or reading a book, 35 minutes passes in a second. But when you're sitting in a cafe waiting for someone, time completely stops.
Exactly. And that made me ask myself a big question. Why does waiting feel so much worse in some situations than in others? Are you a patient person, Maya?
Honestly, it depends. I think I used to be very impatient when I was younger, but over the last few years, I've tried to become much more relaxed about time. I mean, if I have my phone with me or a good book, I don't really mind waiting for 10 or 15 minutes. I just read or listen to music.
See, I wish I could do that. I've always been a very punctual person. In fact, I'm usually 5 or 10 minutes early for everything. So when I have to wait for someone who is late, I start feeling restless almost immediately.
But Daniel, don't you think being 5 minutes early can actually make your waiting problem worse? If you arrive 10 minutes early and your friend is 10 minutes late, you have now been waiting for 20 minutes.
That's actually a really good point. You're right. I'm adding extra waiting time to my own life.
You really are. You're creating your own waiting problem.
Well, maybe, but to me, being early means I respect the other person's time.
I agree that respect is important, but life happens, you know? People get stuck in traffic, or their bus is late, or their work meeting runs long.
Sure, but let me ask you about a very specific situation. Have you ever had a friend text you saying, "I'm 5 minutes away," but then they take 30 minutes to arrive?
Oh, wow, yes. Actually, that exact thing happened to me last week with my friend Sam.
Tell me what happened.
We agreed to meet at a park near my house at 4 o'clock. At 5 past 4, I texted him to ask if he was close. He replied immediately and said, "Sorry, I'm 5 minutes away."
So I said no problem, and I waited on a bench.
And how long did he actually take?
He took 25 minutes.
He took 25 minutes after saying 5 minutes. How did you feel while you were waiting?
Well, at first I was fine. I thought, okay, 5 minutes is nothing. But after 10 minutes passed, I checked my phone. By 20 minutes, I was walking in circles and getting more and more annoyed. Right. And why were you annoyed? Was it because he was late, or was it because he told you 5 minutes?
That's the secret. It was definitely because he told me 5 minutes. Because he said 5 minutes, I was expecting him to appear at any moment. I couldn't start reading an article, I couldn't make a phone call, and I couldn't relax. Every single second, I was expecting his car to pull up.
Yes, that is the core of the whole problem. When someone tells you 5 minutes, your brain gets ready. You put yourself in a state of waiting. If he had told you, "Hey, traffic is terrible, I'll be there in 30 minutes, what would you have done?
I would have walked to the nearby bookstore, or I would have bought a coffee and sat comfortably. I wouldn't have spent 25 minutes standing on the corner feeling frustrated.
Exactly. So the problem was not the 25 minutes itself. The real problem was that you didn't know the truth about the time.
That is so true, Daniel. It's not knowing. Not knowing how long you have to wait is so much worse than the wait itself.
But let me challenge you on that a little bit, Maya. Because even if someone tells me they are going to be late, I still get annoyed if it happens regularly. Don't you think that being consistently late is just disrespectful?
Well, I think there are two sides to the issue. To be honest, I don't think most people are late because they want to disrespect you.
Why are they late then?
I think some people are just bad at planning their time. They just think they can do everything faster than they really can. They are not trying to be rude. They're just wrong about how much time things take.
Well, maybe. But for me, time is the one thing we can never get back. If I'm waiting for 30 minutes, that's 30 minutes of my life that I could have used to do something productive. When someone makes me wait without a good reason, it feels like they think their time is more valuable than mine.
I understand why you see it that way, Daniel. That makes sense. But doesn't that depend on what you do while you wait? If you use those 30 minutes to rest or read, then your time is not wasted, right?
That is true if you can actually use the time. But as we just talked about, when you're waiting for a friend who could arrive at any second, you can't really settle down and do something meaningful. You're stuck in the middle.
That is fair. The stuck in the middle feeling is definitely the worst part.
I had another experience with the same feeling a couple of weeks ago, but it wasn't with a friend. It was on a train.
Oh, tell me, what happened?
I was traveling home after work on a rainy Tuesday evening. The train was completely full. Suddenly, between two stations, the train stopped.
Oh no, did the lights go out?
No, the lights stayed on, but the train just sat there on the tracks. For the first 5 minutes, nobody said anything. But then 10 minutes passed, then 15 minutes passed, and there was still no announcement.
How are the other passengers reacting?
People were looking around, checking their phones, and getting more and more impatient. You could feel the stress in the train rising every minute.
And then what happened?
Finally, after 20 minutes, the speaker came on. The driver said, "Sorry for the delay, everyone. There was a signal problem, but it's fixed now and we'll be moving in 2 minutes."
And how did everyone react?
Instantly, everyone relaxed. People literally let out a big breath of relief. Some people started talking and smiling.
That is amazing.
The situation didn't change. We were still stuck on the train, but we felt completely different because we finally knew what was happening.
That is such a clear example. When you were sitting there with no information, it felt terrible. But as soon as you knew it would only take 2 more minutes, waiting became much easier.
Exactly. The uncertainty was gone.
You know, that makes me think about how modern technology tries to solve this problem. Have you noticed how apps for rides or food delivery always show you a live map with a timer?
Yes, I use those apps all the time.
Think about how different that feels compared to the past. Years ago, if you called for a taxi, they would just say, "A car will arrive soon." And you had to stand by the window watching the street for 20 minutes. You couldn't even leave the room because you were afraid you would miss the driver.
I remember that. It was awful.
But now, when you order food or a ride on your phone, you can see the driver moving on a map. You see that your food is 8 minutes away. Even if it changes to 12 minutes, you don't get as angry because you can see where they are.
Right, you have a clear idea of what to expect. You know you have 4 extra minutes, so you can make a cup of tea or finish what you were doing.
So the waiting time might be longer, but the experience of waiting feels much easier because you're informed.
That is so true. It seems like we hate having no control over our time much more than we hate time passing. And landing pause of 0.5 seconds.
Yes, I think that's the main point. It's all about control.
Now, let me ask you about a few different types of everyday waiting, because I think some types of waiting are definitely worse than others.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's compare them. What's the first one?
What about waiting in line at the supermarket? How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I don't mind waiting in line at the supermarket at all.
Really? Why not?
Well, because I can see the line moving, I can see the cashier scanning items. Since I can see progress happening step by step, I stay pretty patient.
That makes sense. For me, supermarket lines are only annoying if I pick the wrong line. You know that moment when you choose the shorter line, but then the person in front of you has a problem with an item?
Oh no, the slow line trap.
Yes. You watch the other longer lines move super fast while your short line stays completely still. That is when I get impatient.
Okay, I agree with you there. That is frustrating. What is another type of waiting?
What about waiting for a text message reply from someone you really like or care about?
Ooh, that is a tough one. That might actually be the hardest kind of waiting of all.
Why do you think that one is so hard?
Because you are waiting for an answer, and you really care about that answer. Every minute that passes without a reply makes your mind start creating stories. You start thinking, did I say something wrong? Are they angry with me?
Yes, your imagination takes over. And unlike the supermarket line, there is no clock to look at. A text message reply could come in 2 seconds or 2 hours.
Exactly. That kind of waiting can ruin your day if you let it.
What about waiting for something exciting, like waiting for a vacation trip that you booked a month ago?
Ah, now that is an interesting one. We even have a word for it: anticipation.
Exactly. When you know a great trip is coming up, waiting for something good actually feels enjoyable. You spend time planning what you'll do, looking at photos, and talking about it with friends. The wait itself becomes part of the fun.
I love that kind of waiting. In fact, sometimes planning the trip and waiting for it feels almost as good as the trip itself.
I agree. So waiting is not always bad. When we have hope and when we know that something good is arriving at a specific time, waiting can feel wonderful.
You know, I was reading an interesting story recently about how an airport handled waiting times for luggage.
Oh, really? What happened?
Passengers were complaining a lot because they had to wait 14 minutes at the luggage area after a short 2-minute walk from the airplane. They were standing in one spot, getting bored and impatient.
So what did the airport do?
They made a simple change. They made passengers walk through a longer route in the airport to get to their luggage. So passengers walked for 12 minutes and then only had to wait 2 minutes at the luggage belt.
Wait, really? The total time was still 16 minutes?
Exactly. The total time was the same, but complaints dropped to almost zero. Because people were active and walking, the time felt much shorter to them than standing still and staring at an empty belt.
That is so clever. It shows that occupied time feels so much shorter than unoccupied time. When your mind is doing something, time passes quickly.
Exactly. Which brings us back to what we can do in daily life. When we find ourselves stuck waiting, the best thing to do is to occupy our minds with something simple.
Right. Instead of staring at the door or checking our watch every minute, we can listen to a podcast, read an article, or just relax.
Yes, if you give your mind something to do, you're not just sitting there waiting anymore. You're using that time for yourself.
So the next time I'm in a cafe waiting for a late friend, I'll try not to worry about the time. I'll just pull out my phone, read a good article, and enjoy a few quiet minutes.
That sounds like a much happier way to live, Daniel.
Well, we would love to hear from our listeners now. What about you? What kind of waiting do you hate the most? Is it waiting for a bus, waiting for food, or waiting for a text message reply?
Let us know in the comments. We love reading your thoughts.
And remember, listening to real conversations like this every week is one of the best ways to improve your English naturally without worrying about complex grammar rules.
Thank you so much for listening today, everyone. We promise we won't keep you waiting too long for the next episode.
See you next time on English à la Keifak.
Goodbye.